All right, everybody come on down. We're going to kick things off. Help yourself to wherever you like to sit. And for anybody that's joining us from home so far, we are live streaming. So we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And if anybody wants to tweet in their questions, somebody. Hey Patrick, can you hear me? I'll holler at him when he gets back in here. We'll make sure that somebody's monitoring the at SEO Meetup Twitter account, which also means for everybody in the room, if you're one of those super shy folks that doesn't want to throw up your hand and ask a question, you can, inside the same room as the speaker, tweet at SEO Meetup, and we will have somebody else ask the question for you. So we're good for introverts and extroverts, either way. All right, so I'm kind of interested. Quick show of hands. Who here, this is the first in-person event that you've attended in the last, I don't know, 15-ish months? Awesome. Thanks for coming out and deciding to join us for this. When I saw the vaccine rollout and the numbers that are coming in there, and the state, this state, other states have been a little bit faster, we won't debate that, for opening things up. This state seems to kind of match with transmission trends in science, and that seems to be a good reopening. I figured maybe people are comfortable coming back to in-person events. I wasn't sure how well the pizza was going to go over, so I figured we'll just order some and see what happens. And I know there's a lot of people that are still avoiding buffet-type foods and things like that, and there's some fun numbers that I'm going to pull up for some business models that you may not want to rush into in the next couple of years, and some other ones that are doing really well. So without further ado, Patrick, I was mentioning and telling the folks on YouTube and such, you usually do this anyway, I don't even have to say it, but if anybody tweets at SEO Meetup, you'll catch it. Awesome. So we're going to take a look at the new normal. I pulled data from Google Trends, very easy, free tool. I like to start there for a lot of projects. A perfect example was a potential client. I ended up not selling them anything because you'll find out in just a minute why. They wanted me to help them with fixing their website because they just weren't getting as much traffic or as many sales. Their industry was DVD to VHS conversions for home movies. This was a couple of years ago, so not a decade or more ago. This was like just a couple of years ago. And they wanted to know why they were losing traffic. And I went to Google Trends and showed them. Everybody that has a VHS that wants it to be a DVD has done that. There's no market left. Nobody else is creating VHSs anymore. This has been a lot of years. So unfortunately, we need new business, not a better marketing strategy, right? So we've got some data about what is this new normal. Everybody's excited that we're going back to normal, but what does that mean today after 15 months of mostly isolation? So here's some shared experiences that we can run through over the last year, even though we've been sort of separated. Anybody running a search for masks? Maybe right around March, April, May-ish of last year. So you can see the little bumps. This is over the past 5 years, just the keyword mask, very broad keyword. Those other bumps are, can anybody guess which month? Hey, that was easy. So we dwarfed Halloween mask traffic in March, April, and May. That was a really popular keyword. One of the interesting things here is that this is the 4 years leading up to it, huge spike at the beginning of the pandemic, but we still haven't settled back into pre-pandemic norms. So there's still a decent market, somewhere in the ballpark of 2 or 3 times the size of the pre-pandemic market for masks.
Is this worldwide?
This is US based. I did not put that in the slides, but all of these are for the US. There are a couple that I pulled that are for specific states, and it does call out the state, but otherwise it's just US focused. Sanitizer. Sanitizer is a thing that existed prior to the pandemic, but you wouldn't expect that with this graph, how much of a spike there was at the beginning of the pandemic. And you can see we are pretty darn close to pre-pandemic levels. People have really leveled off on their interest in sanitizer. Toilet paper. The great toilet paper shortage of 2020 is shown right here. Everybody's trying to figure out where do you get the line on the latest toilet paper. And it looks like around December, we had another little blip where people were having a hard time finding some TV. I don't know what was going on in 2018-19-ish that caused those couple of bumps there. Hurricanes, maybe? I don't know. That would cause that, because this is national data. So it would have to be a hurricane that is a big enough impact that it can move national search.
They're not.
Is that, what, in 2018, is that near the elections?
I don't know,
A lot
maybe.
of people get sick, you know,
There-
in November every year.
Well, there's also the novelty toilet paper for whichever candidate you don't like. But I don't know, maybe. Stimulus. So a lot of people searching for stimulus, and that one also seems to be sticking around. There's 3 unique spikes there. Those might match with specific dates for some reason. Some more fun stuff that some of us may have gotten into. I do have backyard chickens now, but they were planned before the pandemic. They just happened to happen that year. So backyard chickens, I'll start with that one. Not much of a blip, and it's mostly back to normal. Patio gardens. A lot of people got into gardening, and a lot of people were stuck in cities. So I figured patio garden would be easier to tease out some of the noise, because there's already a lot of volume for the broader gardening keyword. And you can see the spike right there with the pandemic, but you can also see it's still trending above the previous 4 years kind of norm. It's staying in that high neighborhood. Although with the seasons, in wintertime, there's not a lot of people doing patio gardens nationwide. Camper van, that would be a really fun industry to be in right now. Its lows coming out of the pandemic are at or just above the highs prior to the pandemic. So the camper van industry looks like it's one of those that is going to, it was already doing well and it was already trending up, but the pandemic really gave it a push, and it's maintaining a good bit of that push coming out of the pandemic. Sourdough. Quick show of hands, who all made sourdough? Made a little sourdough. Only one? I did not join in on that trend because one of the many things that I studied in college was, for a little while, I was a culinary major and really enjoyed my baking and pastry class and got all of that out of my system during that time. Coffee recipes. This is when everybody realized they couldn't go to Starbucks anymore and they had to figure out how to make that cup of coffee at home. As soon as the doors opened, they were right back in the coffee shops, it looks like. DoorDash, that is the yellow line there. So you can see DoorDash was already trending up. They got a nice bump during the pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, their lows are well above their prior to the pandemic highs. It's not even really on the same trajectory. There's a new growth rate coming out of the pandemic. Many delivery services have seen that kind of a trend. Uber Eats is definitely not doing as well on their marketing as DoorDash. So if anybody knows someone at Uber Eats, tell them to copy what DoorDash is doing. It can't hurt. Instacart. A lot of people needed to order groceries, and Instacart has pretty well dominated that market, grocery deliveries. And again, coming out of the pandemic, their new lows are not even close. Their new lows are like 3 or 4 times the pre-pandemic highs. So a lot of interest in Instacart coming out of the pandemic.
Now, I'm just going to make a comment here. Don't anyone invest in Instacart.
This is not investment advice.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is that if you look at a grocery market, super prices, they're using Instacart or they're not, it's anywhere from 8 to 13% higher. So as people go back to supermarkets, Instacart will go back to collapsing.
Yeah. So you're expecting a precipitous drop to match this meteoric rise.
Serious dip. And now that a lot of supermarket chains, well, Kroger, of course, left North Carolina, are starting their own delivery services. And almost all of them will keep curbside pickup. Things like Instacart will be in real trouble or something. Like they were lower than they were to begin with.
As a small counterpoint to that, I was an Instacart user before the pandemic, and the reason that I signed up for Instacart, and if there was a competitor, I'd probably try it too, but it's the only one available to me, is that during the trial, I did a side-by-side test, and using roughly the same grocery list to go myself versus with Instacart, I only saw about a $15 to $20 difference in my bill, but I saved between an hour to an hour and a half of my time. And so for that reason alone, I switched to, when I first thought of it, I was like, I'm gonna order my groceries for delivery. How lazy am I? But when I looked at the math and I was like, I'm buying an hour to an hour and a half of my time that I can spend working, relaxing with friends and family, whatever I want to do with it. It was a small price to pay for buying back an hour of my time. Most entrepreneurs, most business owners look at how do I optimize the business and forget about how do I optimize the personal life. I'm looking forward to, at some point in the future, these aren't purchased yet, a housekeeper and a personal chef, which is surprisingly affordable if you haven't looked at it. They'll stop by like twice a week, fill up your refrigerator with containers full of food that you just heat up and eat. But they'll match whatever your dietary preferences are. And rather than going out to restaurants and stuff, it's much more affordable to have the chef come to your house, prepare all the meals once or twice a week, and have everything ready to go, just to save the time. So there may be somewhat of a market of people, especially with the ones that have like 5x in Bitcoin. We're going to get into that in a little bit. They might have some disposable income.
And a good portion of Instacart's market is like my 3 sisters and myself have an Instacart account
that you share
between us because our mother, mom gets 8 hours for me to get to my mom's house. But during the pandemic, when she couldn't get out, we're talking to her on the phone. You know, what do you need anything? Any groceries? And you know, I can add it to the cart, and you know, you'll get them from Kroger, in fact.
We did that a couple of times with my mother-in-law. She doesn't get Instacart.
They mark it that way, it'll stay.
She doesn't get Instacart, but Amazon Prime included delivery from the Whole Food stores. They stopped that, however, so maybe they'll bring that back to compete with this, because definitely a 20% margin on just bringing in my groceries is ample room for competition. I'm not tied to the Instacart brand. I'm tied to the service, whoever the provider is, and Amazon seems like the obvious logistics company that would just dominate that whenever they decide to want to take it. But yeah, we did the same thing with my mother-in-law. That's a huge help if you've got distance between you and loved ones.
And even if you don't, because even if I lived next door to my mom, I couldn't go over there for 10 minutes and drop off groceries. I'd be there for 2.5 hours.
Don't tell your mom this is going live, so. Pandemic fads. So this was kind of a fun one. Dispensary delivery over the past 5 years has already been trending up. But you can see the pandemic, March, April, and May, a lot of people were stuck at home trying to figure out how do I get a delivery from my local dispensary. And after the pandemic, it's still moving up, but it's kind of matching with the trend that was already there. It hasn't really moved like some of the others that we were seeing. It's just settled back into the pace that it was before. Date night over the past 5 years. Something happened around March, April-ish, and going into May. Nobody was really interested in date night compared to the past few years. But now, as things are opening back up, it's coming back into the normal trend. It hasn't really taken off. Pandemic supported trends. So this is delivery, just a very, very broad delivery keyword. Over the past 5 years, you can see the spike, but then it's settled in a little bit higher. So its new normal is just a little bit higher. We'll see if that ends up tapering off. Work online, work from home, remote jobs, and remote work over the past 5 years. These have all been pretty flat for the last 5 years. The one exception is remote jobs here in yellow. It's kind of hard to tease out exactly if this part right here is really flat or a slight incline over the previous few years, but definitely coming out of the pandemic, remote jobs, that's the keyword to be after. If you've got a site working on that, work from home right now has a lot more interest and got a bigger spike, but you can see coming out of the pandemic, remote jobs is getting much closer in terms of interest. So if you have a couple years that you're planning on this project, remote jobs might be the category of keywords that you want to focus on as that takes over from work from home. And all 4 of these had a spike right around March, April, May. But remote work and work from home have pretty well settled back into a little bit higher than their pre-pandemic numbers. Remote jobs really is the standout here.
Yeah, well, work from home and remote jobs I see as 2 different intents altogether, so that kind of makes sense of, I'm working, what do I need to do to work from home, whereas remote jobs is, okay, we're coming out of this, are they going to make me go back to the office, or do I have to find something new? So I can see that.
One of the things that I was teasing out, I see them as being different, but for different reasons. Work from home, in my opinion, seems to be more of somebody's just finding out that they can do this. Mm-hmm. Remote jobs is, okay, I don't want to actually be at home, I'd like to be on a beach somewhere. So we're getting a little bit more specific about what it is that we're looking for here. Because a lot of companies will let you work from home, but you have to log in from that IP address. And if you start really wanting that freedom, remote jobs is the way that you want to go, where they're not tying you to an IP either.
I go for the beach one.
Yes.
I was about to say, I believe it's Relaton, but I also believe it's the Turcos and Caicos. All have really good deals right now. If you're willing to sign a 1-year lease, you get free internet, free fiber, all sorts of stuff to move down there for you.
Lots of digital nomad travel opportunities have opened up in the last year. People setting up co-working islands and things like that. E-bike. This was an interesting one that I bumped into in the news. Apparently, e-bikes have become so popular during the pandemic that people that like to ride their mountain bikes and trail bikes and such are getting into arguments with e-bike owners because they don't see the mountain bike trails as being the domain of e-bikes. And so they're sort of in this weird hybrid area where they're not quite a moped, but they're not quite a bicycle, they're not really a mountain bike. So they're taking e-bikes out on the trails and causing a little bit of a ruckus.
I hope you have a picture because I don't know what an e-bike is.
A bike with an electric motor.
Ah!
So March-ish, a little bit of a spike during the pandemic and continuing afterwards. You can see there was already an uptrend, but the slope is significantly different after the pandemic. So these are some holding pandemic shifts. This is a fun one here. So I figured the keyword movie times. This is what you search for when you're trying to find the times for movies in your area, right? So how many people are going out in the world and trying to figure out what time a movie is playing in a local theater? In March, nobody. Nobody cares that all the movie theaters are closed, which is evidenced by all the way down here, we've only moved up to there. The pre-pandemic low is here. We haven't even reached the pre-pandemic lows for movie theaters. That sucks. If you own a movie theater, I am so sorry for you, but I'm going to pick on you so hard right now. That data just sucks. I can't imagine trying to own a movie theater. So I dug into Nevada a little bit to see, because they're a little bit more quick to open, we'll put it that way. We don't have to debate why. They're just now getting to pre-pandemic lows. They're in that general neighborhood of pre-pandemic lows. So they've been open for a little while now in Nevada, telling everybody to do whatever the hell you want. And it took that long to just reach a bad movie or a bad weekend for a garbage movie. That's gonna suck in that industry. Nobody wants to go to the movies. I mean, everybody's got a TV like this on the wall, and they streamed all the new releases. They've already proven they can do it. There's a lot of things coming out of the pandemic that you just can't put it back in the box. You've proven that you can do this. One of the things that frustrated me was we wanted to see a movie that they had on Disney Plus, and you have to have the subscription to Disney Plus to have the privilege to give them $20 to watch the movie. And I subscribed and canceled Disney Plus in the same day because of that. Because I looked through the catalog and there's nothing else I want to watch, and I'm not going to pay for a subscription to a service to have the privilege to pay you money again. Seems like the movie industry might be having a Netflix kind of moment, or not Netflix, Napster, the other end one, a Napster kind of moment. They might need to understand how torrents work and how they need to incentivize people to just give them money because they want less friction, not more friction in the transaction. Unemployment, mortgages, PPP, I threw that one in just for fun. I wouldn't expect anybody searching for PPP prior to that unless they're really interested in purchasing power parity. Surprisingly, that wasn't a really popular topic over the past 5 years. So unemployment is people interested in news, people interested in anything related to unemployment. But you can see people are a little bit less interested, but significantly more interested than they have been over the last 5 years. Mortgages were really popular when they first dropped rates, and they're still a little bit popular if you can find a house to buy. We're going to get into that in just a moment.
So as I say, if you're looking for a house and you need a mortgage, you already lost that.
Yeah. You got to get the mortgage first. So in the economy, here's a couple of fun ones. GameStop and Bitcoin over the past 5 years. I did look at these as topics, so GameStop as an electronics retail company and Bitcoin as a currency rather than as keywords that were being searched. With keywords, if you did this as keywords being searched in order to have the same type of data, you need not only the keyword GameStop, but you also need the ticker GME, and then you can match up all the peaks and valleys. And with Bitcoin, you need not only the keyword Bitcoin, but also the ticker BTC, and then the peaks and valleys match up. But in order to just have two lines, looking at it as the currency in the electronics retailer, you get that. But one of the things I found really interesting here, coming into the new normal, is you can see the significant spikes and then drops off of Bitcoin from the past two big moves in that currency. Mm-hmm. And coming into the pandemic, you've got a couple of peaks and valleys, but it's really sort of setting a new normal. It's not a tremendous peak followed by a plummet back down to the previous lows. So that's going to be interesting if anybody's a Bitcoin geek and wants to tease that out a little bit further. That would be fun to dig into more. Like I said, I like to use Google Trends as just a really good overview to get a picture of what's going on in the market. To get into the details, you got to get a lot more information. GameStop, several little peaks whenever it's been pumping, and it's trailing off for now. We'll see what happens with that again. This is a little bit more interesting related to those that previous slide. The broad keyword stock. over the last 5, actually I brought it out to 2004. So this is not just the last 5 years, this is all the way back to 2004. Looking at interest in the very broad keyword stock. And then you can see in somewhere around 2016, 17, 18, 19, we've got a little bit of an uptrend, but 2020 is a significant shift in the slope of that trend line there. So if you were building a niche website or investing kind of website around stocks, right now is a huge time to be in that keyword pool. A lot of interest, a lot of people digging into those topics. Interest rates and inflation. I pulled this up because I thought it was kind of interesting that since 2004, they're both sort of just alternating, shifting up and down. Huge spike in interest rates when mortgage rates go down. Coming out of the pandemic, a growing spike in interest in inflation.
So these are the actuals, not keywords, just the actual states.
This is interest in this keyword, in this search term. So these are not numbers of searches per week, month, what have you. This is a measurement of the level of interest in that term. And because they're both set to a level of interest, it allows you to look and see kind of how they compare, if one really stands out from the other. So right at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of interest in interest rates settling back down to norms, but inflation seems to be starting a pretty good spike. Interest in searching for information about those things. Stock market bubble. So this is over the past 5 years. I switched back to looking at the last 5 years to see how much interest there is in that. This is the start of the pandemic. This is the new year. But it seems like people are settling in and not too concerned about a stock market bubble at this point. But there was a lot of concern about it at the end of 2020 and beginning of 2021. Curiosity out of the room.
I bet it switched over to the real estate bubble.
Real estate bubble?
January 7th.
Yeah.
January 7th, that was Googled more times than I believe, and every other word except for insurrection.
Yeah, that probably lines up with
Yep.
January 7th there. All right, so housing. Let's see what's going on in housing keywords. Home for sale. Anybody put that keyword in recently? I heard a couple people said they were looking for houses. This is going back to 2004 again, so not just the last 5 years. We've got a gradual uptrend, and you can see those last 2 little bumps there coming into 2020 and 2021. Significant change in the slope of that trend line. If you were to match this, you've got kind of that kind of a trend line, and then we switch to something like that.
When you look at these things, is it possible to restrict the geography? So can you, for instance, say, be searching on home for sale, people searching from like cities, like New York, Chicago, just because there was a lot of people moving out of those places in 2020. So it's possible to look at that?
Yeah. Yeah, you can dig into states, cities.
It's real easy too. I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely has that.
Google
As long as you
Trends
have
makes it
that
simple.
traffic around the keyword, you can dig down. But yeah, for this one, you should.
Yeah.
I don't like the topic component. If you put in like home for sale, there's a topic, right? It'll give you the heat map of the U.S. and you can see where the interest is spiking,
I love
see
that.
what trends what keywords are breaking out, which ones are declining. That's pretty insightful for a category.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you typed in cicadas, anything in the Northeast. Well, I mean, yeah, it's funny, but it really is. I don't think they have them. Do they have them in California? I don't know.
Yeah, and you can get into all of those breakouts to really tease out if you're too far off the mark. If some of those breakout terms are related to things that you're not actually trying to understand, you might need to switch to add a negative modifier or something like that to tease out the keywords that you're actually wanting to understand. Break lease over the last 5 years, nice little spike at the beginning of the pandemic and going into November-ish, October, November-ish of 2020, and then settling off. This could be landlords looking for ways to get tenants out, or it could be tenants looking for ways to get out of their lease so they can flee the city and not have to be locked in a New York City apartment during the pandemic. That would not have been fun. So,
Wow, it peaked before 2020, that's interesting.
yeah. Well,
Am I looking at it wrong?
this is only the last 5 years. So 2020 is in this ballpark-ish area. So this is right around March, April, May,
Okay.
through around October-ish, October, November-ish. Lumber. That's been a topic of interest. And you can see the 2020 and the new peak there for 2021 kind of trends as people are getting their spring and summer projects going and then trending down as we get into fall and winter. Lumber price over the last 5 years, huge spike in interest in lumber price. Plywood. So anybody know what catastrophic event happened around
Probably a hurricane.
towards the end of 2017? Yeah, that'd be hurricane season of 2017. Who got decimated? But yeah, huge spike in plywood there. But the interesting thing here is that 2020 sets a whole new trend. It's the new lows are in the neighborhood of the previous highs in interest in plywood. Now, since we are at the Raleigh SEO meetup, this is what is most interesting to everybody in this room, digital marketing shifts. So I use this one as kind of a baseline website. Got a nice little spike at the beginning of the pandemic. A bunch of business owners realized that maybe they should have a presence on the internet. It's surprising how many still didn't know that. And it seems like website is a broad general term settled back into the norm, not really much of a deviation. But they have learned something. So again, we're looking at 5 years, so 2020 is this little spike here around March. Looking at Google ads and Facebook ads. Did Google change the name of their ads at some point? I don't
AdWords,
know.
yeah.
So that's the reason for this shift from here to here, is a change from AdWords to Google Ads. I didn't think they got that much better at marketing their product than Facebook all at once like that, so, but I didn't remember the name. So ads are pretty important coming out of the pandemic. We're looking at very similar amounts of interest in Google Ads and Facebook ads to pre-pandemic. Affiliate marketing, passive income, those two keyword terms. Here is somewhere around beginning of the pandemic in this general ballpark here, because that's December of 19, so somewhere around here. Nice, mostly flat interest in affiliate marketing and passive income. Pandemic hits, people are trying to figure out, how do I pay my bills? How do I work from home? Bump into information about affiliate marketing and passive income, and looks like we're starting a significant uptrend. The dotted line here I don't think appeared in any of the others. That is the forecast that Google has for what's going to happen with affiliate marketing, continuing an uptrend. So lots of people looking for information around those two types of ways to make money online. Search engine optimization as a topic over the past 5 years. You can see this would be the pandemic, March, April, May. Everybody goes into quarantine. Businesses have to move online. They're looking for websites. They're looking for search engine optimization as a topic. The interesting thing is that coming through the pandemic and coming out, we are at highs for the last 5 years. So you should be seeing a lot of interest in search engine optimization from clients. And I wanted to back out and look at it a little bit more. So also as a topic, going all the way back to 2004, we've got this nice little golden era here, somewhere around 2017, 18-ish ballpark, where there's a lot of interest in search engine optimization as a topic. And then 2019 drops back down to the norms. But we're starting a new golden era for search engine optimization. I see some no's from folks.
I just got nothing. I have no idea what the heck that means, so.
I would expect that you have more clients now than you had last year.
This plateau.
years ago.
The one from a few years ago is what I'm
This
talking
plateau here,
about. Yeah.
I would conjure that this area here, there were more people that were interested. There was possibly an increase in revenue for SEO
What
agencies.
year was that? Where is that?
Oh, that's a
They
good one.
don't pay attention to SEO campaigns. No.
No, they were mostly talking about social media manipulation and such, not really search manipulation.
Yeah, most of them don't care about SEO because again, SEO is a longer game and campaigns only care about like 3 or 4 months period.
Yeah.
So I don't want to disagree with you, I'm just saying.
Yes, I got nothing then into this. That's the only.
So that'd be fun to tease into more. Patrick, you've worked at a lot of agencies.
I have no idea what caused that.
Nothing standing out?
I can only think like big stuff like Ring Frame rolled out in 2015, 16. Could be. Like,
Mobilegeddon,
England wouldn't have spiked it, but like around then.
the Mobilegeddon kind of push was right around that time.
Yeah, that was.
That's an odd spike though.
I have to think that was the election. Especially, don't forget, it's more than 3 or 4 months in general. The Democrats were fighting. The Democrats had 2 candidates for quite a long time in 2016. So I think that's the election.
That was from 2004.
Go back to it.
No, that's okay.
Somewhere in the ballpark of 17, 18, 2017, 2018, in that neighborhood. All of this is on Google Trends, so you can go to trends.google.com, you can put in search engine optimization as a topic, go forward to present, you'll see the same chart. And then you can move your mouse over and get the exact dates. But I just grabbed screenshots to make it easy for the slide deck. I did want to look at, is there a little bit of nuance in the uptrend right now? So 04 to present, local SEO and technical SEO. So local SEO is the blue line here. People have been realizing that local SEO might be something important to them. Here it is, that uptrend again. This is, let's see, that would be end of 15. So this is somewhere around 2016, 17, 18, in that ballpark-ish here. And then here's coming into and out of the pandemic. And technical SEO, that is mostly flat, little blips here, but in 2020, technical SEO is coming into its own, starting to gain some traction. The lows coming out of the pandemic are higher than the highs going into the pandemic for technical SEO. Zooming in to look at just the last 5 years, instead of going all the way back to 04 for both of these local SEO and technical SEO terms. You can see over the last 5 years a decline in interest in local SEO, growing again. So possibly a sine wave kind of pattern if we were to zoom out further. But we are, it seems, in the uptrend of that kind of sine wave pattern. And technical SEO starting to break out and get some interest. These, in my opinion, support the idea that this is a good time to be in search engine optimization. And that is the presentation that I have. Any questions, comments,
You
concerns?
can search on cookies.
Cookies?
No, I mean web cookies, not cookies.
Were people sitting at home eating a lot of bags of cookies?
No, but I mean the curiosity of when Google announced the cookies are going to go away, was there an uptick?
Oh. I don't know. Let's see.
I bet there is.
I bet you
I'm pretty confident. Like, first party data is
Well, that would be.
Yeah. But that,
Kind of a new term.
something like first-party data is so obscure, you gotta think, over the last 5 years, how many people have actually searched for that? It's kind of like the PPP example that I put in. You wouldn't expect purchasing power parity to be nearly as popular as a stimulus program by the federal government. Oh, all caps.
What now, Frank? What now?
So somebody asked about cookies.
We do a lot.
Oh,
We'll do
yeah,
a
cookies.
live example. Google cookies or
Is it baking cookies versus baking bread?
Cookies. Browser.
browser cookies?
Browser
Cookies, maybe.
Or cookie less?
They're tracking cookies.
You know, one of the problems with Google Transit is it does like aggregate terms that it probably shouldn't. So if you just put in cookies, you probably have baking plus.
Although, the truth of the matter is that cookies probably also pops up when Girl Scouts are selling cookies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I will mention to you that there's an article yesterday, the Girl Scouts right now are sitting on over 15 million boxes of cookies they can sell, so that if you didn't get cookies, they have them, they have that remote delivery thing. Please order some cookies.
They didn't come to my house. That was
You
right
have to
before.
go and order them.
No, they come to my house. I got a neighborhood full of them, and they didn't come to my
Last
house.
year, a lot of them weren't allowed to go to people's houses.
Yeah.
You had to order them to come to your
I
house.
had mine delivered.
It was the Girl Away or something.
Yeah.
It was called something.
Yeah, they delivered. I ordered
Right.
online and donated money. They delivered.
But, so just mention it, you can, all go home and buy the cookies, since you all haven't put on enough weight yet.
So with browser cookies, when you scroll to the bottom, you can see the related topics and the related queries. This is how I kind of help to understand if this is way off base. If we're seeing Girl Scout cookies and the related queries, we're probably not talking about the same thing here. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, this is a starting place. This is not the ending place for digging into this kind of information. But I figured it'd be good data to get an idea of what this new normal is that we're all venturing out into. And the state map that was mentioned, you can see that Nebraska and Utah have the most interest in browser cookies.
The mysterious bump in search engine optimization that might have been the election, the heat map, I pulled it up here, the heat map weirdly was in Kansas, specifically Deering, Kansas.
I have my own theories on that one.
What, I'm sorry, is Deering there in Kansas City or St. Louis?
Well, no, it's, I used to live in Kansas, I've never heard of it. Yeah, see there?
Yeah, so we can click on Kansas and then we can see.
It seemed like it was south, maybe down by Ark City, or Kansas City, or.
So nothing opposite. is
No,
what you're saying.
no, there's,
So another fun thing that you can do if you want to try to like tease this out for
yeah,
this.
see, that's good.
Let me go out from, instead of the 5 years, let's look at 04 to present.
Just say I don't believe any spike from deer.
No.
Population 431.
So you saw the first spike is January of
It looks
16.
great, that's the other.
The election was just a.
January of 16
Trump was just sworn
through,
in.
it's declining in November of 17,
Yeah.
right? So now, let's just look at January of 16 through November of 17 with custom dates.
Nobody will confirm it for me, but I believe that rank tracking companies have some kind of hub there because it's the center of the United States. I don't know, I'm making this stuff up, but every time I do a digital marketing term, it always seems to show Kansas as the highest
Kansas
trend.
City was the first city to get Google Fiber.
It's
And they had a lot
impossible.
of influx of tech people when they first got Google
Yeah,
Fiber. Everybody else was,
Would you do that?
T1's the best way to do it. Suddenly, you know, every home could have Google Fiber.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Oh, you know.
They
They talked
actually
about
changed
Raleigh.
the state.
And when they got down to 10, but Kansas City won it by a landslide. I thought about moving.
So,
Within this set of data here,
You guys?
for just those dates, just that spike from January of 16 through the end of November of 17, we can see that related topics are Brisbane, City, and Australia. So, yeah, something is off on that.
When did they
SEO
leave-
Singapore.
When did they legalize pot in that city?
There's not
And
even
that is
500.
search engine optimization as a topic. So it's miscategorized some stuff in there.
It's just Jerry sitting in his house, keeps typing it in SEO.
And yeah, Wichita, Kansas seems to be the central point here.
There we go.
Somebody in Wichita, Kansas is desperate for an SEO service. They're checking daily.
So, we looked it up, and the center of the U.S., the geo coordinates is in Kansas. So
Yeah.
it probably is a lot of rank trackers that just set to a very neutral location.
Some relentless grandparent who heard that their grandson did search engine optimization, just refresh, trying to find out what the hell it was.
So that is
That hurts my brain, I can't.
some of the interesting trends. This is a perfect example of you don't build a business around this. You get an idea of what's going on in the market, look for the outliers, go and dig into that outlier and go, oh, apparently all the rank trackers like to use Wichita, Kansas, and so we can throw all this trend out. But you can find other fun stuff like they put on the homepage here. In California and New York, they say football, and everywhere else is American football or something. I don't know.
I think I was in Wichita, Kansas. I opened up a pizza shop called SEO.
Name everything SEO. SEO Wichita, Kansas. All right, thanks everyone.
So you're going to go back to monthly?
Yes. So we are still going to have the weekly, except on the weeks that we're here in person, SEO social events that are online. And for anybody that didn't already know about those have been happening through the entire pandemic, and everybody was invited. We hang out on Discord and just talk about what's going on in the world of digital marketing, because if you take this and you put it online, you've got a webinar. And show of hands, who wants another meeting to put onto your agenda for the day? Nobody needs another webinar or another Zoom call? No, okay. That's what I figured. So we hang out on Discord and just chat about what's going on in digital marketing, interesting projects that you're working on for a week or whatever. And we do that every Tuesday, have been throughout the pandemic. And then the third Tuesday, we're doing the in-person events. I can't be in two places at once, so we don't do the Discord thing. We just do this on the third Tuesday. And we'll see how that goes for the next couple of months, because this is part of the new normal. I don't know how many people are still interested in doing the SEO social online. That I got a lot of feedback from folks that were attending those, that they loved that the commute was from the living room to the laptop, which might be in the living room. And